Welcome, everyone. I'm your host, David Bodary, and today we continue our series of program entitled League of Women Voters Empowering You. This program is designed by the League of Women Voters in partnership with Dayton Access Television to provide unbiased, nonpartisan information on issues that are relevant to our friends and neighbors throughout the greater Dayton area. The League of Women Voters mission is as much about education as it is about voting. The League has positions on government, social policy, and natural resource use. Today, I'm pleased to have the opportunity to take broad focus on the League as I introduce our new Executive Director, Christina Corba. Chris, thank you so much for being with us today, taking time so that we can more fully understand the work of the League in our community. I thought first it would be important for us to sort of recognize the great work that Sue Hesselgesser, Executive Director of the Greater Dayton League of Women Voters for 10 years, I believe.
10 years, yes.
So a shout out to say thank you, Sue Hesselgesser, so much for your past work. But today we get to meet Christine.
Yep.
Corba. What I hope is that you can tell us a little bit about what you've done before, and then maybe a little bit about your vision for the future with the League.
Well, first of all, thank you so much. This marks my 8th day flying solo with the League. It's been just so much fun getting to know everybody, and I've never experienced such a warm welcome. When Susan was training me a couple of weeks ago, she told me, you will never meet a group of smarter, more passionate, and helpful people in your lifetime, and that has proven to be absolutely true. So I am absolutely delighted to be part of this organization. My background, I have worked in nonprofits for my entire professional career, except for about 1.5 years when I sold advertising.
Okay.
But we don't talk about that too much. I started off at Family Service Association, and everything that I have done over those years has in some way, shape, or form involved volunteerism. I love working with volunteers. It's one of my passions. I've always found that when you get the opportunity to just sit down and talk with somebody who's absolutely just giving their time of their own free will, that's a very special person. And so when I became a mom, I started doing some contract work. And I was working remotely before remote was even a thing.
Right.
I remember setting up my little computer up in our little office attic and trying to figure out email. That's how old I am. Couldn't quite figure out how it was. I was sending emails, I was sending faxes, I was sending letters to people to get minutes out. But during that point in time, I got to work with the Friends of the Dayton Metro Library, which I know you're familiar with.
Sure.
I ran their book sales for about 17 years. And so I got very proficient at figuring out how many volunteers it took to unload four semis of books in an evening. But just met the most lovely people in the whole wide world during that process. Again, it just re-emphasized the importance of volunteers.
Right.
We had little ladies that would arrange their hip replacement surgery so they wouldn't miss a book sale. So it was great. And then I got to work for the Ohio Community Service Council, did some contract work with them. And that's when I really discovered how much I enjoy committee work, which is a lot of what the League is all about. I got the opportunity to help draft some legislature for volunteer background checks. And I really think that role gave me a lot of the skills that I needed to move into this position as well. I've done a lot of grant writing. Most recently, I've been in development positions with We Care Arts, which was a whole lot of fun, and most recently with United Rehabilitation Services. So I think
when you were at We Care Arts, you were doing some pretty creative fundraising things.
we did. We had a fun event. People kind of looked at us like it was really, but we had Arts and Drafts, which was a tattoo festival.
Huh.
And I actually got my one and only tattoo at that event. I will never do it again. But we had a group of people. It started out as a music festival with art. And one of the volunteers owned a tattoo shop, and she said, "What if we do tattoos for a cause?" And I said, can we actually do that? And she said, sure. And it's, surprisingly not too difficult to get, everything you need. You need to get your health stuff taken care of and all that kind of thing. But it was a lot of fun, and it brought people in from all over the country. We had folks from, I can't remember the name of the show. It's a tattoo show.
Oh, one of those ink shows or something like that.
Yeah, so we had somebody come from there, and we had people coming all over from Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and New York City and Boston, and they all came to Tattoo for a Cause. It was really fun.
That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
Shout out for sure to the Weaker Arts folks.
It was fun.
Certainly very creative. And then United Rehabilitation Services as well, and so you most recently were there.
Yes.
What was your role there?
I was development director there as well, so I was responsible for raising money and doing that sort of stuff. So,
and then that is what we are most familiar with in terms of the Rubber Duck Regatta.
Yes.
So a shout out to URS.
Shout out to
and
URS.
Yeah.
Make sure you buy your duck starting in July.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's wonderful. And so then what leads you to think, well, all right, but the league, what is it about the league that drew you in?
Well, okay, so I saw the job was advertised, and I, as most of us have been over the past 5 or 6 years, a lot more interested in democracy and voting and how important it is for all of us to have our voice heard. And my husband and I every night talk about current events during dinner. He's, bless his heart, he is able to work and listen to podcasts all day long, and he knows more about current events than anybody I know. But I saw the role, and I saw what the job description was, and that it was working with volunteers, it was educating people, it was getting things done in our community, and I thought, this just feels right to me.
Yeah.
And as I said, it's interesting, it's exciting, it's challenging, and so that's what drew me to this position. I just feel like I've landed in the right place.
Well, and we definitely, or I can say I definitely felt it was the right person at the right time. You come with great experiences, creativity, as well as fundraising experience. So certainly the league being a nonprofit, that's part of what we do.
Yep.
In order to do the other work that's so important that
Absolutely.
we're doing in the democracy.
Absolutely.
So I like to say that democracy is not a spectator sport, and we can't sit idly by and watch or complain about what is or what isn't happening in a democracy, because it requires our involvement. It requires our participation and our engagement. So I'm hoping we get a chance to talk a little bit about what are some of the things that you see the league being involved in that needs that engagement, or ways that you envision perhaps the league might benefit from additional engagement.
Well, of course, we want people to be involved in government. We want them to vote. We want them to get registered, and we want them to vote regularly. And as a matter of fact, we have a primary that's coming up on May 4th, and a perfect opportunity. I think, as you said, a lot of people sit back and complain about taxes. They complain about, who's in office. They complain that they're not doing what they wanted them to do. But ask many people, and they say, you asked, did you vote? Well, no, it doesn't make a difference. And again, in the past, especially in the past election, it was demonstrated how important every single vote is. You go back through some of these very close elections, and it was just off by a couple hundred votes, and it makes a huge difference.
And even smaller voting numbers in certain local elections too, right? So that in some cases a vote or two absolutely do matter. Yep. So my students will often have a similar sort of response. They're like, oh, does it really matter? And I would argue it does matter a great deal. Mm-hmm. And so voting is one thing. Of course, you can't vote unless you're registered to vote.
Exactly. And you can register by visiting your local or your county's Board of Election. You can register right online. You can register at your local library. There's all kinds of ways for you to get registered. Unfortunately, right now, for the primary, that's if you're not registered to vote right now,
Right.
you can't vote in this upcoming primary. But you have until October 4th to get registered for the general election, which will be in November.
So then you get to vote in the election that is determined by the primary, right?
Exactly.
So we decide who will we be voting on in November through the primary in May.
And we do have some interesting elections or races going on right now. The city of Dayton is electing a new mayor. They're also electing 2 city commissioners. And Huber Heights also has a mayoral contest as well as a city commissioners too. And then there are issues in Greene County, especially. We cover Montgomery and Greene counties, school levies, and that's really important. Beaver Creek has a levy coming up. Xenia and Bellbrook all have levies, and Beaver Creek also has a construction and road repair. And
Okay.
so again, those levies, it's important for you to vote because that's your money. That's your money that's being put to work.
Yeah, and influencing how then that money is or isn't spent, right?
Exactly.
And of course, that also requires education, doesn't it? Because in order to make a decision about how to spend money, I have to understand something about, well, what are the choices? What are the options? How does the league involved in helping people to be informed?
Well, the league publishes the Voter's Guide every year. It's a nonpartisan newspaper that's inserted in Dayton Daily News and a number of local newspapers as well as hand-delivered to libraries, to assisted living facilities, to schools, anybody that would like to have one. We try to get it to them. And I'm actually looking forward to that process because from what I understand, it's like Christmas when the voters' guides come. I know that this year, because of COVID, there was a lot of concern about whether or not that was going to happen. But just as Santa, we delivered. So everybody got their voters' guides. And we provide those, as I said, in a newspaper form and also online on our website. So we're actually in the process right now of putting together the voters' guide for the primary. What we do is we send out an invitation to all of the candidates and ask them if they would like to participate and ask questions that are relative to their particular race. We have about an 85% return on those requests, and we do not do anything to their answers. So whatever they send to us is exactly how the candidate says it's going to be.
Right. So who decides what those questions will be? Because I've read through those and I thought, oh, those are interesting questions. Who decides?
Well, it's what we try to do is, a lot of the league members are very keyed into what's going on in their community. So we ask league members. Actually, we just had one of our league members asked her condominium association to
provide some input,
come up with some questions.
Cool.
She lives in the city of Dayton, and so all of her neighbors came up with some questions that they would like to know about from the upcoming mayoral race and commissioner race. So we get them from all over the place.
That's very cool. So I'm imagining that then after a person is elected, the league isn't done. And so the league does provide information about how to contact our elected officials.
We actually just published our latest directory of public officials, and that is available for sale. They're $6 a piece, and then you can, if you're interested in acquiring one of those, you can just call the league offices, and we're happy to send one out to you.
And so that will include the name, the position, the phone number, as well as the email for all of those elected officials that might be representing us, whether it be the city, the county, the state.
And it also, and federal. So it also gives you information about the best way to approach your comment or your question. So that I think I know for myself, it would be kind of intimidating if I'd never talked to an elected official before. How do I say something that I disagree with your position, or I appreciate your position, because there are times that everybody needs add a girl, add a boy, and how you do that in the most diplomatic and diplomatic way that people are going to actually read what you say.
Right. So people could get that. It's a cost of $6 unless they're a member.
Yes. So if the member is $5 and
Oh,
then postage. Yes.
Nice. So then, obviously, membership is another level of involvement. What else comes with that?
What comes with membership?
Yeah.
Well, it gives you the opportunity to get involved in your community. We have all kinds of ways for folks who are league members to get to volunteer. For example, we just conducted a candidate forum. And so we brought together the folks that were running for Dayton Mayor and Commissioner, and one of our league members moderated that event and gets to answer questions. And actually, everything that is done by the league is done by volunteers. I mean, Lucy Ann has been in the office all week long getting the virtual guide ready to go. And then we also have opportunities for presentations. We have Capital Chat, which takes place in January, and all kinds of fun fundraisers to be involved with as well.
Absolutely. So you mentioned the virtual voter guide, because in the primary we won't send out a physical printed guide. It'll be the virtual or online guide.
Yes.
So important to remember and understand that. But it's typically in the larger elections, certainly in the presidential year elections or in the off-year elections in November, we would generally have a printed guide, right?
We have for 100 years.
That's amazing.
I know. We are headed into the second century of the League of Women Voters. And I think that's the other thing that attracted me to this position, was just, you know, my mother is a history major, and she has always had a fascination with women's history. And so I grew up with that as well. And the notion of working with an organization that has empowered women for over 100 years was just really attractive to me as well. As a matter of fact, when I left my last job, it was so sweet. They gave me a balloon that said "Girl Power" along with it,
nice.
and it is. I think that's one of, as I said, I think that's one of the things that attracted me as well, is just how long of a rich history of how women have been able to change the world. And we have a lot of power. We need to use it. But of course, the League is open to men as well.
Well, that's
because
lovely,
we
yeah.
need you.
and I appreciate that. But certainly as a father of 2 daughters, as a man who's married to a very strong, independent woman, I understand the importance of the League and the work that they do. I also think, though, that women have really taken, or maybe they've added strength to our democracy. The voice that has been shared is something that I think has really benefited the whole community, not just women, but actually the women's voice has been added, is actually helping lots of people.
Yeah.
So that's pretty exciting.
It is.
It was a year ago, February, that I spoke at the Dayton Library, part of the TEDx Salon Dayton's event. And I was invited to speak about the League and really to reflect on that 100 years. And what's so exciting is that while 100 years ago women didn't even have the opportunity to cast a ballot, now 100 years later, they're not only casting ballots, but they're running for and winning offices, and many women are in important and valuable sorts of roles throughout the country. Obviously, mayor here in Dayton, but also a vice president, a female vice president in the office in the White House. Supreme Court justices, I mean, there's all kinds of opportunity, and so the League has been a part of helping to empower girls and women over those 100 years, so it's very exciting.
And helping young women to understand they can aspire to something beyond what they had been told traditionally they could not do. And I mean, watching Kamala take that oath of office was just the best.
It's a big deal.
I should have worn my pearls today. I don't know what I was thinking.
It's fine, but it does matter, and I think voice matters. And of course, that's my role as a faculty member. I teach students all the time about how important it is to understand and gain that sense of voice. So voice does matter. One of the ways that we can also use the league is to make those phone calls to our elected officials to help them to understand how we feel about important positions. So I don't want to underestimate that. Are there other things that citizens can do as you see it?
Right now, one of the things that the league has undertaken is the fair districting issue. And as a matter of fact, we are going to be providing a program at the end of April that describes how folks can get involved with that process. In 2015 and in 2018, Ohio, actually every single county in Ohio voted to reform the district situation right now. Something everybody heard the funny word gerrymandering.
Right.
But what gerrymandering does is it gives an unfair advantage to one political party over the other. And as a nonpartisan organization, we believe as a league that everyone should have the opportunity to run and to have the same kind of opportunity to win that election. There are some districts that are, some people have heard the snake on the lake, where there is actually a district that runs from Cleveland all the way up to Toledo along the lake. And people in Toledo don't have the same needs as people in Cleveland,
right.
But that is under one district.
Right.
So what will happen, we have a unique opportunity now. They redo the districts every 10 years.
Right.
And this is our chance to do that.
We just finished the census.
Yes.
And so that data then will determine how many representatives will be established throughout the state.
Exactly.
And then the districts, based on the census information, will be redrawn under a new set of guidelines.
Exactly. So the reform guidelines say, and again, I've been doing my homework
this is your
as best
eighth day.
I could.
We're going to give you some grace. Yeah.
But they have to be contiguous now. We can't have we cannot have districts that are flowing from Cleveland all the way to Toledo anymore. And there are some guidelines about how many times those can be divided in terms of the number of people that are there. We're under kind of a crunch right now because the census information may not get here until the end of September, but that work can start now.
Right.
And so the league and other organizations across the state are creating maps, and we are inviting the community to gather in small groups and to define what makes their particular town, their area community important to them. Because the other part of this reform requires that there be community forums.
Okay.
And so what this mapping process will do is to help community members to have the voice that they need to tell their elected officials what's important to them and why their district should stay together and not be divided.
Right. It's been explained to me by political scientists that in a gerrymandered district, the politicians choose the voters rather than the voters choosing their politician, right? Mm-hmm. So obviously we want to get this right because, of course, the democracy works better when we haven't conflated or conflicted those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. So if people are interested in learning more about what Chris has identified, I would encourage them to visit the League of Women Voters, that is LWVDayton.org. Or we have a Facebook page, and they could join the Facebook page with the League of Women Voters of Greater Dayton. We want to thank our guest, Chris Corba, Executive Director now of the Greater Dayton League of Women Voters. And I want to thank all of you, the viewing audience, for watching LWV, League of Women Voters Empowering You. The League of Women Voters encourages everyone to be a voter by being first registered to vote and then actively voting in every election, not just a primary, not just a national election, but in every election. If you have further questions about how to become registered to vote, perhaps how to become a member of the League or a volunteer, perhaps how to vote or how to find information about what to vote on, or any ideas for upcoming programs, you can contact the League by emailing league@lwvdayton.org, or you can call the office at 937-228-4041. Stay safe, be well, continue to wear your mask, get your vaccination, as I have, and of course, be a voter every election.
you.